Welcome to the Five Nights at Freddy's Iceberg, Tier 1, 10th Anniversary Week. The week of FNAF's 10th anniversary was insane. Every single day there was something new. So, starting out this week of the 10th anniversary, the 1st of August had the release of My Pop Goes, an official spin-off of FNAF that was released a year prior as an April Fool's prank, but this time it was the full paid version of the game. August 2nd had the release of a demo for The Joy of Creation as a part of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. This was a project made in 2020 by Scott Cawthon that revolves around collaborating with big fan game creators to make their games into officially endorsed spin-offs. But The Joy of Creation has been a thing for a while. Like, I remember getting scared at videos of it when I was 11. Yeah, the whole process of the Fazbear Fanverse is basically Scott Cawthon gives these devs to either make a new game in their series or remake older ones. Remakes mainly for copyright reasons and no longer having same staff, stuff like that. So Joy of Creation was a thing already, but now there's a demo for a newer, fully endorsed version by Scott Cawthon. This initiative has a lot of other games, but I'll get into that later. August 3rd of this 10th anniversary week had the release of a free interactive novel called Five Nights at Freddy's VIP. August 4th, a second interview with Scott Cawthon by Daco. The first was a massive deal, and second, even bigger. Scott Cawthon really doesn't sit down and talk about the games too much, so these interviews have revealed most of the weird trivia we know about the behind-the-scenes making of this franchise. I'm sure a third interview will happen eventually, but that's probably a ways away. August 5th had the announcement of a collaboration with Dead by Daylight. As a Dead by Daylight fan for 9 years now, me and everyone else was kind of freaking out. Since Dead by Daylight started getting collaborations, Five Nights at Freddy's was a heavily wanted one. So this coming out was a massive deal, and ended up being one of my few live streams on the channel. They ended up adding Springtrap as a killer alongside a whole pizzeria map. August 6th had the announcement of Secret of the Mimic. August 7th, a demo for 5 Laps at Freddy's, a spin-off kart racer set to release fully in 2026, and also the release of Into the Pit, accidentally. The Japanese version of the game ended up releasing earlier than intended on Switch, so instead of leaving all the PC and other console players a day late to play the game, they just released it fully on the 7th. Since the 8th of August was originally going to be the release of Into the Pit, instead, different teasers for the second FNAF movie were put out, having segments of 4 different scripts made for the movie, only one of them being real, and that one never being confirmed. Though I guess with this video being released now, we'll probably know which one is real pretty soon. Markiplier. Markiplier, the king of FNAF, was a big push of popularity for the first game. While there's no original recording of Five Nights at Freddy's, just given how old it is, it's hard to find anything super solid on it, a lot of people generally agree that Yummy Mash was the first big video on the game, and that video, as Markiplier mentions in the start of his video, was the thing that got him to play the game.
And I saw that Yummy Mash played it, and he said it was really good. So
Yummy Mash was certainly big and dragged in a lot of views and attention to Five Nights at Freddy's, but Markiplier was on a different level. He still does a series on every game in this franchise to come out, and when it's something like Secret of the Mimic where I know my PC can't run it, I just binge that for 10 hours straight. Corey X Kenshin. Corey Kenshin was also a massive FNAF creator back in the early days, bringing in millions of views for every video, and he even got to be in the movie. At the end of the movie, he shows up as a taxi driver. Originally, Markiplier was going to be in the movie as well, but he was too busy making Iron Lung. Corey also returned for the second movie, being the same taxi driver as the last one. And while Markiplier may be the king of FNAF, his content isn't just this franchise. Same with Corey Kenshin. But Daco is a Five Nights at Freddy's creature. His channel has probably been 99% FNAF based for the past decade, and is arguably the most influential creator for the franchise, doing lore videos, the interviews with Scott Cawthon's, behind the scenes with people making the games, music, videos, gameplay videos, memes. I mean, this guy does everything related to this franchise and still does. If there's any news to be covered about the franchise, he's on it first thing. Any new game, trailer, drama, merch, everything he'll make a video on. Daco's 50-20 reaction. One of his most iconic moments, outside of the Scott Cawthon interviews, is when he beat the 50-20 mode in Ultimate Custom Night, one of the most difficult things to do in the entire franchise. He broke down, to say the least. I'll play it for a second here. The Game Theorist. Lastly, for these YouTuber entries, Game Theory or Game Theorist have been a massive part of piecing together FNAF lore. Their most popular videos have mostly been FNAF themed, but for a while, back when there were new FNAF games coming out super consistently, around 2014 to 16, it seemed like most of their videos were about this franchise, and that's justified. Considering how complex the lore is, there's just a lot to talk about. Also, MatPat, the now previous guy for Game Theorists, actually appeared in the first and second movie, his character being named Ness in the first movie, based off the whole iconic Sans is Ness theory he did, but he also voiced Toy Bonnie in the, well, now released FNAF 2 movie. Camera flipping glitch. In the first game, if you have a lower-end PC, it makes it a lot easier to do, but with any device, if you're really quick, by flipping the cameras up and down constantly while doing the jump scares by Bonnie or Chica, you can infinitely delay the game from ending. And this still has the timer going down mid-jump scare animation, meaning if you do this constantly, you can survive the entire night being constantly jump scared. Very hard to do for a long time, but it is possible. Canonized fan names. There's a good chunk of characters that throughout the games were given names by fans that would eventually become their canon names. To start, Golden Freddy was never even called Golden Freddy in the first game. In fact, in the files, it was just called Yellow Bear. But at some point throughout the series, fairly early on, fans started referring to this Yellow Bear as Golden Freddy. Signs point to Markiplier's second video being the first big appearance of the name, but it most likely wasn't the first. But the name sort of became official for fans of the game. I mean, everyone was calling it Golden Freddy, so while in the files of the second game they were still referred to as Yellow Bear, in the custom night mode they were called Golden Freddy, purely from the fans calling them this all the time. Now, speaking of animatronic names, my favorite animatronic is a bit weird with what it's actually called. Puppet? Marionette? It's kinda complicated. In one of the phone calls in the second game, the puppet is referred to as Puppet. Okay, so the name's Puppet, right? Yes and no. The third game, it's called the Phantom Puppet, but in the fourth, it's called Nightmarione, in FNAF World simply being called Marionette. So what is this thing's name? The character encyclopedia actually answers this. The name is Puppet, and it's a marionette puppet, meaning it's operated by strings. So basically, both names work. But before this encyclopedia, it was kind of just up in the air what the official name was. And one of the most iconic name reveals or fan speculated names was for Springtrap. Scott Cawthon used to do tons of teasers for FNAF games, mainly through scottgames.com. But the third game in particular, he went crazy with. And the teasers for this third game were all based around who's this mysterious new animatronic. Some popular names the community came up with were Hybrid, Salvage, Stitches, Golden Bonnie. These would of course all not be the official name, but the way Scott revealed Springtrap's name was super unique. On a Steam community post talking about how beta testing for the game was done and set to release, certain letters were repeated twice. Combining these letters would spell out, "My name is Springtrap." Just a super cool and unique way to do a name reveal. Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. Chipper & Sons Lumber Company is a construction and management game made by Scott Cawthon before the first Five Nights at Freddy's. You play as Tyke, a young beaver who just started out in the lumber business. You chop down trees, collect and sell wood, allowing your father Chipper to turn them into lumber at his mill, slowly upgrading your tools along the way. Like I said though, this game was before FNAF, being released in 2013 for mobile, and it came with two versions, a full version and a plus version. The full version free, plus version being a paid version that allows you to get special items early in advance. The game was also pitched to Steam Greenlight, but it was pulled a day later after Scott receiving criticism regarding the art style and how the characters looked like animatronic dolls. So Scott Cawthon took those same critiques and used them to make Five Nights at Freddy's crazy comeback story, just making the arguably most iconic horror franchise for my generation, from some Steam reviews. Eventually, after many requests, Scott finally released a PC port of the game on GameJolt. Ironically, the story kinda came full circle with FNAF World. The lumber company was brought back in this game, and the style of the world was almost the exact same as the original games. And those critiques, they didn't change. I get it, the style is very different from the main games, but FNAF World is up there in my rankings of the games, for sure in my top 3. I adore the style, music, collecting of characters. I never really got the hate for those aspects in particular. The game did have a pretty buggy launch, having tons of glitches that really did stain the whole thing. Stained it so bad that the game was only available on Steam for 4 days. Yeah, it got completely removed after 4 days of being available and was put on GameJolt instead, making FNAF World extremely rare on any Steam account, and making it known as one of the worst launches in the franchise. Custom Night 1987 code. In the Custom Night mode of FNAF 1, if you put in 1987 or 1987, a Golden Freddy jump scare occurs. At the time, there were a lot of rumors about this happening if you beat the 1987 mode, that there would be some secret ending, but there wasn't. Yeah, Scott just ended up updating the game and having a Golden Freddy jump scare instead. Deltarune FNAF reference. In Deltarune Chapter 1, Purple Guy and FNAF in general is referenced. The entirety of Ices is a very clear nod to this franchise, and then they're just talking about a purple guy in Chapter 1. Sister Location Easter eggs. In Sister Location, there's a good number of pretty big Easter eggs. To start, there is a 1 in 10,000 chance when entering an area, one of these blueprint screens will appear. You can get Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, or Funtime Foxy. There's also Lolbit and Yendo that appear at similar low chance odds. Lolbit being a 1 in 5,000 chance to replace Ennard's mask in the primary control module, and Yendo appears occasionally with a 1 in 1,000 chance in the Funtime Auditorium to replace Funtime Foxy. There's also hidden Biddy Babs and Mini Renas scattered about. Biddy Bab can occasionally appear behind the window in the elevator with a 1 in 1,000 chance, and can also appear in the circus gallery with the same odds. As for the Mini Renas, there is a 1 in 1,000 chance they appear on the left side of the control room, and can also pop out of the popcorn bowl with a 1 in 10,000 chance that re-rolls every 5 seconds. As far as Easter eggs go in the first year, we've also got the iconic nose honk in the first game. If you click Freddy's nose, it honks. And Ian Coffin, Scott Cawthon's oldest son, suggested this feature. His kids were sort of beta testers for the games, so some features like the nose honk were just directly from his family's suggestions. Rare screens. Through different triggers like going to a menu, getting a warning, dying, stuff like that, you can see rare screens, some of the more iconic being the eyeless animatronics, with a 1 in 1,000 chance to get Bonnie when going to the menu of FNAF 1. And in FNAF 2, there's eyeless versions of other animatronics as well, also being a 1 in 1,000 chance trigger. If you hit the trigger after a warning screen, you get the Withered Freddy screen. If you get it on a game over, you get the Toy Bonnie screen. And lastly, if you get it at the start of the night, you get a Withered Foxy screen. Other rare screens happen throughout the games, like specific ways animatronics will be looking at the cameras. There's just a lot of them. Fazbear Fanverse Initiative. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a project by Scott Cawthon called the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative, where he sponsors very well-made fan game creators to continue making games in their series, and have it as an officially licensed spin-off series, or to remake their games to fit certain requirements to be an official spin-off. For example, Joy of Creation was a massively popular and well-made fan game for ages, so the makers were sponsored to remake it as an official FNAF spin-off. Five Nights at Freddy's Plus was also looped into this initiative, and it was gonna be a really cool, almost remake of the first game, but that one got canned. Pop Goes is next, with the first Pop Goes game, Pop Goes Arcade, now being an official spin-off of Five Nights at Freddy's. Then, like I mentioned, another game was made as a part of the 10th anniversary week of the franchise, and now there's a third game being made called Pop Goes Evergreen. Second to last, we have One Night at Flumpty's, that actually had 3 games that were all put into the official spin-off part of this project, but the main developer had drama, I guess you could call it, and the collection of games was being made for console, but is very much in the air now. It's not officially cancelled, but it's indefinitely postponed. And for the most popular one, my personal favorite as well, there's Five Nights at Candy's. This is by far, in my opinion, the best example of a FNAF fan game. All 3 of the Candy's games feel very similar to older FNAF in every aspect. Five Nights at Candy's is just amazing. The 3 games that already exist are getting deluxe versions, remasters to be considered official spin-offs, alongside a 4th game in the making. The Fazbear Fanverse Initiative is a really cool idea, and I just hope Scott Cawthon decides to do more with it. Joy of Creation, Pop Goes, Candies, all of those are super sick, and I can't wait to see what happens with them. But it does kinda stink that 2/5 of these games are just not gonna have anything. Either way, there's 3 really cool fan games that are now being sponsored by Scott himself, and I can't wait to see what happens with them. Show Stage Stare. This image you've never seen in game. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica all staring directly at the security camera. You can't see this in game. It was in the game's trailer, but it's become an iconic image from the first game, that everyone seems to have gotten Mandela affected into believing they saw it in the actual gameplay. It is left over in the files of the game, but yeah, you can't ever see this in natural gameplay. Sparky the Dog. The rumor of Sparky the Dog is an old one for this community. After an amazing launch of FNAF, someone began spreading rumors of a 6th hidden animatronic, named Sparky the Dog. Screenshots began to crop up on Tumblr. Reportedly, Sparky the one-armed dog was non-violent and would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway. However, it was eventually revealed that it was a hoax by its creators, with all the screenshots being photoshopped, and normally that would be it, just another rumored character that wasn't real. But in a way, it turns out he is real. The first FNAF movie came out, and there's tons of references and Easter eggs in it. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, MatPat is in the movie. So Scott Cawthon, the maker of FNAF and co-writer/producer of the movie, for sure understands the community, and what parts of it are iconic, like Sparky. This is an actual screenshot from the movie showing Sparky the dog, a fake animatronic turned real. This has to be by far the most amazing outcome of a video game rumor. Just appearing in the game's movie adaptation, that's insane. Willy's Wonderland. Before the official Five Nights at Freddy's movie released, the closest thing we had was called Willy's Wonderland, a Nick Cage horror movie about surviving animatronics. It's quite literally just FNAF, but with no real lore and Nick Cage. It's awesome. Don't get me wrong, the movie sucks, but it's so bad it's good. Nick Cage doesn't have a single line of dialogue throughout the entire movie, while he beats up animatronics. If you watch it, don't take it seriously. It's a pretty fun watch, and I do recommend to anyone who likes this franchise. Bonnie gave Scott nightmares. There was a Steam discussion post on FNAF 4 that just stated, "I wonder which animatronic Scott Cawthon finds the most terrifying." Well, no need to wonder, because Scott Cawthon himself actually responded to the post. He said, "The original Bonnie gave me nightmares. That was the only one out of the whole series." Which, fair. Funny story, Bonnie sorta almost killed me in real life. When the first FNAF game came out, I got it on my little Kindle Fire, and me and my friend Mateo had just started playing it before getting on the bus to our after-school care. We knew the game was supposed to be a bit scary, but it was pretty early on in its release, so, it wasn't this massive franchise that everyone knows of yet. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks after launch. We had no clue that we were gonna get jump scared, just didn't know that was a part of the game. So there we are on the bus, right behind the driver, playing it on max volume. Night 1, we get jump scared by Bonnie, we both scream, and the bus driver almost completely swerves into the other lane of traffic. We were in trouble, to say the least, but literally, Bonnie almost killed me. I get that fear of Bonnie. Before moving on to Tier 2, I do want to mention that my friend is actually working on a FNAF fan game, alongside the Unwithered Truth. It's a remake of FNAF 1 with tons of new features and being completely done in Unity. This isn't sponsored or anything, and I don't know if I'd promote a friend's game if I didn't think it looked amazing, which it does. I'll have a link for the trailer in the description. I highly recommend you give it a watch. This game is gonna be amazing. Tier 2, Adventure Mangle Hanging. This was one of the teasers for FNAF World. It's a bit dark, so I'll brighten it for you. But yeah, it's Mangle hanging from the ceiling, with text on the bottom saying, "See what you've all done?" Just an insane teaser image. The teasers around FNAF World were all pretty tame, but very unique. Mangle was for sure a standout, but otherwise on Scott's website, there was a thank you screen that slowly changed, having animatronics added, removed, turned into friendlier versions of themselves, until at the end it was revealed a new game was coming out that was going to be called FNAF World. The whole lead up to this game was really cool, all the teasers were very unique, and given how unique FNAF World is, it fits. Aftonbuilt. Aftonbuilt is one of the better made fan games for this franchise. It takes place after FNAF 3, where you play as the Mechanic, an engineer responsible for the upkeep of Fazbear's Fright. After the fire, you save the main attraction and discover that it's possessed by the spirit of William, voiced by Nolan David, who also voiced William in a FNAF VHS YouTube series. Very well made. But the two decide to team up with each other so that William could have this new body and walk amongst the living again. This game had a really cool concept, the gameplay was great, but it was rejected from the Fanverse initiative because of it being, quote, too ambitious, which really stinks. This game would have been great, but we'll probably never know what the story was going to go to. After being rejected from the Fanverse initiative, development stopped. The demo's still available, but I really don't think we'll see any more progress on this. Another FNAF fan game open source. Another FNAF fan game open source, or sometimes called FNAF 2 open source, was a sort of FNAF 2 remaster. It was basically FNAF 2, but being fully open source. Fully moddable. The game was great, the new mechanics introduced, like toxicity level, were super well done, the graphics, the game looked amazing. The actual main mode wasn't completed, but we did get a custom night mode to see what the game would have been like. So this game looks great, it's moddable, works well. Why did I say would have been like? Well, Scott Cawthon didn't like how similar it was to the original FNAF 2. For copyright reasons, the game had to unfortunately be taken down. Beaver and wolf animatronics in FNAF 1. During the making of FNAF 1, there were some animatronics that ended up being scrapped. When coming up with the fourth character, Scott first came up with a wolf animatronic. After rejecting this idea, he thought of a beaver animatronic, but since it was too similar to Mr. Chipper from Chipper and Sons Lumber Co., the beaver animatronic ended up getting scrapped as well. Eventually, he came up with Foxy to replace these two ideas, but we would later down the line get Roxy, and see the return of Mr. Chipper through FNAF World. So while they were scrapped for ages, we did eventually get them down the line. Blacklight animatronics and Help Wanted. In 2018, Funko started doing figures for blacklight animatronics. Pretty self-explanatory. Different color variants like being under a blacklight. And while they're currently only in merchandise, they were very close to being in-game. Left over in the files of Help Wanted are renders for these blacklight variants. They were intended to be in the nightmare mode of the game, but never got completed. I can't imagine what a lime Foxy sprinting down the hall would have looked like. Bonnie and Chica groans. In the first FNAF game, when you're looking through your cameras, if Bonnie or Chica make their way into your office, you'll hear this. Personally, I don't remember hearing that, but that might have just been my mind trying to forget about it, because, wow, that's just disturbing. Chrome Freddy. There was a video going around, a decade ago now, of in FNAF 3, of finding a new Chrome Freddy animatronic. Looking back at it now, not being a little kid, it was very obviously a hoax, but it spread really fast, having over 1 million people see this video about a new animatronic. There's a decent amount of hoaxes in this franchise, but this one was for sure one of the more influential ones. Circus Baby Game Over Screen. An unused image of Circus Baby is left over in the files of Sister Location. The code reveals that the file was originally going to be used as a part of a early Game Over screen. Really eerie looking, especially with the red lighting, but there's a ton of scrap screens like this and other features that I'll go into later in the video. Coffee Pot and Help Wanted. Scott Cawthon's big game before FNAF was The Desolate Hope, a 2D platformer where you play as a coffee mug going through this dystopian-looking world. There's a lot to talk about this game that I'd like to save for a separate video, but the main character of it has recently appeared in some FNAF games as an Easter egg. Starting out with Help Wanted. You can see him in the FNAF 3 part, and even at the prize counter. He even shows up in Secret of the Mimic, lying down on this table. These have been the only 2 games he's shown up in so far, but I'm sure we'll see this little coffee pot scattered throughout future games. Everything is working as intended. March 11th, 2019, Scott Cawthon released a teaser for Help Wanted on his Scott Games site. It was a close-up of the top left part of the mix of animatronics from the game's cover, but the teaser was taken down. Not even a full day after it went up. This was because people noticed the Funtime Foxy and Spring Bonnie models were actually from fan-made models. Scott later stated in a Reddit post that Steel Wool told him the models were just being used as placeholders, since they weren't done texturing their own models of those characters, alongside the fact that the artist who added the fan models thought they were made by Scott himself. Just a big mix-up, and people were really mad at Steel Wool for a bit. Fall Fest. Fall Fest is an annual carnival held by Fazbear Entertainment. It's a part of the lore that's relatively new. It was first mentioned in Help Wanted's DLC, Curse of Dreadbear, where there's a banner for Fall Fest 1983. It was also mentioned in Help Wanted 2 and Secret of the Mimic. Through those games, we know that the fest took place between 1970 and the latest, 83. In Secret of the Mimic, Fiona Murray, in a tape, mentions that she left to help at the Fall Fest in the 70s, and is pretty strongly suggested to have died there at the event from another audio log by Edwin. There's hints that there may have been a fire during the 70s Fall Fest that killed Fiona. In the Moon EXE game, there's multiple burned buildings. At one is a set of statues of a married couple, with the wife being charred and burned, while the husband has a bow tie that seems to look a lot like Murray's. This isn't the only thing hinting to the Fall Fest being burned down though. In Help Wanted 2, posters for the Fall Fest can be seen throughout the game, and 2 levels based on attractions that would have been at the carnival. Phaser Blast and Cinder Carousel both catch on fire, seeming to be foreshadowing. It's possible that these 2 levels explain what happened at Fall Fest. Phaser Blast, specifically when Carney's tricks literally backfired on him, shows a customer accidentally started a fire while playing a carnival attraction due to faulty equipment and fire hazards. Cinder Carousel could represent how Fiona died, with the fire quickly growing into a wild inferno. Fiona attempted to perform emergency repairs to prevent further destruction, but ended up dying in the fire. When covering stuff that's story related like this, I do want to stress that it's all very speculative. So much of this franchise is secrets and things that are just implied. Stuff like this could totally be wrong. Just keep that in mind for anything lore related. There is a good chunk of stuff that's confirmed for this franchise, but a lot of the more interesting stuff like this is very speculative. Freddy in Space 2 Secret Bosses. Freddy in Space 2 is a side-scrolling game made by Scott Cawthon for a St. Jude's fundraiser, the game being a sequel to FNAF World's Freddy in Space minigame. It also has secret bosses. There's the Mad Theorist, Puppet Master, S. Cotton, Anim Dude, and Mechaplier. All nods to other games or creators who did stuff with this franchise. Just a really cool thing to do for a fundraiser, really cool secret bosses, and there was even another one made in 2023. Five Nights at Freddy's the Musical. FNAF got a fan-made musical on YouTube. I'd be lying if I didn't say I got extremely hooked and watched through most of the series in a row, but most of the games have gotten a musical adaptation and normally feature a pretty big creator in the whole umbrella of FNAF. Starting out starring Markiplier, then Nate Wants to Battle, Matt Pat, I mean, the list goes on. And like I said, they're pretty good. Most game-based musicals I come across are pretty good, but this one really sticks out for being so stuck in my head. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Delivery. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Delivery was a planned real-life pizza delivery ghost kitchen. It was revealed in June of 2022, with a Twitter account being made for it as well. But after 2 years of silence on the project, Virtual Dining, the company overseeing it, would file for the trademark to be abandoned. So we almost got a real form of Fazbear's Pizza. Eventually we'll get it. Freddy's Top Teeth. For some reason, Funko always adds teeth to the tops and bottoms of animatronics' mouths for their figures. It's not something I would ever point out naturally or probably even notice, but they don't have top teeth in their FNAF 1 designs. Designs that were used for reference for the Funkos. Comparing without teeth and with, the ones with just look really weird. Freddy Bear. On the original Kickstarter for FNAF, which got cancelled, it was just taken down super early, the name of Freddy was Freddy Bear instead of Freddy. Just a really weird naming choice. Glamrock Bonnie. The cast of animatronics for Security Breach are the main normal characters, except for Monty Gator. Where's Bonnie? Well, a Glamrock Bonnie did exist, and still does, just in worse condition. In the Ruin DLC behind Bonnie Bowl, you can see Bonnie's Glamrock form torn to shreds. We can also see this Glamrock Bonnie in Help Wanted 2. It's heavily implied that this was from Monty, them being torn apart. Monty took place as the bassist, and the claw marks on Glamrock Bonnie do match Monty's claws. It was for sure Monty who did this. But speaking of Glamrock animatronics, Glamrock Mr. Hippo. Yeah, in an ending of Security Breach, there's a newspaper article revealing that Mr. Hippo has taken Monty's place as the bassist, with Monty now taking the role of Glamrock Freddy as the lead singer of the band. Certainly the last character I think anyone would expect to get a glam rock version, but he looks pretty cool, and for some reason he's sporting a triangle instead of a guitar. Halloween Horror Nights. Like most horror franchises that have made it big, Halloween Horror Nights had a FNAF section, filled with tons of actual animatronics and actors. It was really well done. There was one in Hollywood and Orlando, and I really badly wanted to go to the one in Orlando, but unfortunately missed it. I know people who have gone, and Daco made a video on it as well, so from both testimonies, everyone said it was just extremely well done. Having the mix of real animatronics and actors, it was just insane. How to make Five Nights at Freddy's not scary. How to make FNAF not scary was a long-running series of sorta meme videos, more so voiceover for FNAF games, to make it silly. I haven't gotten a nostalgia hit this bad in a while, rewatching these, but they were massively popular, tens of millions of views. Going through it nowadays, it aged almost so bad it was good. The humor is what you would expect from 2014 and 15, and just seeing that again nowadays is something else.
Hey dude, you gonna finish that pizza? I'm sorry man, I'm just curious.
Live system. In the beta version of the first game, there was a life meter. So originally we may have been able to survive multiple jump scares. Even though this mechanic never made it into full release, we do have very early footage of it being in the game, being played by Scott Cawthon's son, that shows this mechanic. It's just a flash on the screen right before the actual night starts, but originally there was going to be a lives mechanic, and it was for sure for the better that it was removed. I feel like it'd make the game feel a lot more arcadey if there was a live system. Being immersed and just dying off one jump scare is for sure a lot better. The textures for the lives mechanic are still left over in the game though, just unused. There's not a whole lot to say about them, aside from the stick figure is referred to as Tiny Man. Markiplier's movie cameo. Originally, Markiplier was meant to cameo as Bob, the security guard seen during the opening of the FNAF movie, but since he was too busy making Iron Lung, he wasn't able to be in the final film. My guess is probably the third or fourth movie will have him. He's by far one of the most important people to the franchise, and it'd just be shocking if, when he actually does have time, if he wasn't gonna be in a movie. He said he's willing to do it, but just too busy making Iron Lung. I realized I haven't mentioned what that is. There's an indie game called Iron Lung. Markiplier's just making a full-blown movie based off of it. And it's supposed to come out in January. Mike Skull. In the files of FNAF 2 lie a strange pixelated image, seemingly depicting a part of a skull's face. The upper teeth are visible with a black stream running down the only visible eye, and the sprite's name is Mike. What's really weird about this sprite in the code is it's the same size as any other marker used for an animatronic's movement, implying that the Mike sprite was originally planned to be an enemy or hallucination. It lacks any AI tied to it, but it being named Mike is a very odd choice. Nightmare Foxy's tongue. In Nightmare Foxy's teaser, he has a long metallic tongue, but this tongue was never shown in-game, aside from his appearance in the main menu and some merch, like with the Hot Topic designs. So what happened to this part of the design? Well, in a Daco interview with Scott Cawthon, he revealed that it was removed because he felt Nightmare Foxy's design wasn't scary enough. There's a lot of things I don't initially understand with Scott Cawthon that I come around on, but this view I really don't get. I feel like the long metallic tongue is a lot scarier than not having any. Scott's VIP list. In the first Daco interview with Scott Cawthon, Daco brought up him getting early access to FNAF 3 despite only having 6,000 subscribers at the time, just reminiscing about the old days. Well, Scott went on to discuss how there's a text document on his desktop called VIP list of people who can get stuff early, people like Daco, bigger and trusted FNAF creators. He hasn't revealed who's all on the list, but basically if anyone got early access to something in this franchise, they're in this text document. Security Breach Fury's Rage. Security Breach Fury's Rage is a sort of delay game, I guess. The game was made to soften the blow of a delay for Security Breach, and the whole intro cinematic explains all of that. Scott being scared that the fans are gonna kill him, so he made a Streets of Rage FNAF clone. It was about an hour long, nothing too big, but this game was fully made just because of the delay for Security Breach. So at least we got another game out of a delay. Springtrap Jump Scare Hate. There's been a couple entries that are X thing hate, and I normally don't cover that. why spread negativity on something that really doesn't deserve it? But that Springtrap jump scare in FNAF 3, don't get me wrong, it's still a jump scare, it for sure has scared me quite a lot, but it's just kind of boring. It's a pretty generalized opinion that, yeah, the main animatronic of FNAF 3 has a bad jump scare. They for sure made it better in Help Wanted though. I haven't been that scared in a while. The end. Thanks for playing. After the release of FNAF 4, this image was put onto Scott's website, simply reading, "The end. Thanks for playing." And for maybe a day or two, people thought the games were done, but no. Brightening the image revealed a small little question mark after the end, and the rest is history. The games definitely didn't stop after 4. Though it was kinda scary for my kid self to be convinced that this franchise was already over. By the time FNAF 4 came out, it was still pretty early on. The whole franchise not even being a year old. Toxic meter. Alongside the Mike skull, a toxic meter is found in the files of FNAF 2, unused. This was confirmed to be a way to prevent the players from keeping the Freddy head on for too long, and the whole reason we learned about its existence is from a doco interview with Scott, like seemingly everything in this franchise. But Scott talked about how he added other things to replace this meter, like Foxy not caring about the head and needing to wind up the music box. The toxic system didn't make the most sense, and having Foxy just see through it and the whole puppet existing was for sure a good way to get rid of it. Vanny in the Glamrock Freddy teaser. One of the teasers for Security Breach actually has Vanny hidden in it. Well, not too hidden, but at the top of this teaser with Rockstar Freddy, we can see Vanny watching from the roof. Just super creepy and a cool way to hint at a new character. X-Scream Origin. Inseminoids is a movie with a really weird alien pregnancy scene. See if you can recognize what bit of audio here was put into FNAF. Yeah, the whole iconic scream sound from FNAF, not from this franchise. It's from a 1981 British sci-fi movie with a woman pregnant with an alien. Just an insane origin for such an iconic sound effect. Tier 3. What the f***? The original script for the FNAF movie was a lot different than what ended up getting used. A lot of aspects were different, like Afton never saying "I always come back." The spring locks weren't even mentioned in the original script. The Freddy kill wasn't present. The whole script was just very different. But the big standout thing from this script was at the end of the movie when Corey, the cab driver, was scared, he was originally gonna drop the F-bomb. And the only reason we know about this is because MatPat of course kept his original script. 10 in Phantom Balloon Boy's teaser. This was one of the teasers for FNAF 3. Phantom Balloon Boy with the text, "Guess who?" and a low opacity 10 right by his face. After this teaser, we kinda got nothing. This 10 seemed to just be there for no reason. Well, it turns out it had a reason, but Scott changed his mind. It was revealed in a Steam post that he was planning on dropping 10 different teasers counting down to the release of the game. But after the first one, he just stopped. Second and third anniversaries. Second and third anniversaries. For the second and third anniversaries of this franchise, Scott released screenshots of how he was working on the games. The second anniversary contained a lot of older screenshots of him working on the first game, and the third anniversary the same, but with FNAF 2 through sister location. Not too many developers really show stuff behind the scenes, so this being shown off was really cool. AAA game. August 5th, 2019, Scott Cawthon updated his upcoming projects thread on Steam, adding a AAA game. He stated, "A deal has been signed with Universal to create a AAA multiplayer game. They've had a few setbacks getting started, but hopefully they'll get it worked out soon. There were some really cool ideas for it. ETA 2021. The post was updated on September 29th of the same year, and it said, "AAA game cancelled." Well, not really. There's been a shakeup for this project. I'm actually not at liberty to discuss some of the details, but I'm taking control of this one, and I feel a lot better about its direction. This won't get started until late 2020, however. So I have a feeling this game was probably scrapped. It for sure wasn't anything that's come out yet, the whole thing being said to be multiplayer, but who knows? It was quarantine and production on everything was very slow, so possibly we could get it in the future, though I have a feeling it was probably just cancelled. Balloon Boy's laugh in Cocomelon. In a Cocomelon episode, there's very clearly Balloon Boy's laugh. I was watching through this to make sure I didn't miss it, and I really thought I would, but it sticks out heavily. Yeah, I don't know why it's there, but somehow, I doubt this is from the laugh, but maybe, the dislike ratio of this one episode with Balloon Boy's laugh is oddly good. I mean, they're terrible for a ratio overall, but for Cocomelon, it's pretty good. Since comments are disabled, I was trying to see if the ratio changed from their average. Since the comments were disabled, I was trying to see if there was any reaction to this, checking the dislike ratio, and while it is still awful, it is better than most. Bonnie running. The original trailer for FNAF showed Bonnie running down the hall. We clearly never got to see this in game, but wow, that would have been a lot more scary. There's tons of animations in this trailer that never got used, primarily the one of them being on stage, but I highly doubt this was ever planned to be in-game. Breaking Wheel Fazbear Fright 7 cover. Fazbear Fright 7, The Cliffs, is the 7th book in the Fazbear Fright series, and while its cover now is completely fine, even if it is a bit violent to the little bear, the unused cover, the original intended one, was way more violent. Back then, this book was originally just called The Breaking Wheel, and it's just really shocking to see such a violent cover for something in this series. Overall, the whole, plot of FNAF is very violent, but there's not too many visuals that really seem to ever cross a line, so this was just kind of crazy. Colossal is from Chipper and Sons. Colossal, an enemy you fight in FNAF World, is actually from Chipper and Sons, Scott's first game in this style. In many ways, FNAF World feels like a successor to Chipper and Sons. I mean, they do, share Chipper, but other than that, there's not a whole lot from this older game, except Colossal. He just decided to take his exact look from the first game and put him in a world. Curse Haunting. Speaking of FNAF World, there's tons of unused content for this game, like files for a red chip called Curse Haunting. The actual code for the chip isn't present, but there is an animation for obtaining it. We can assume it would have used Haunting on all the enemies at the start of a battle, but that's just an educated guess. There's also a cut Toxic song attack, and some dialogue for 8-Bit Fredbear that is kind of eerie. That dialogue reads, "If you keep following him, you will only finish a story. There's something more important for you to do." There's also an image of the box from FNAF World being opened, but this never gets used. There's some early sprites for a Brow Boy and a swimming turtle, and there's also an alternate cupcake look. Lastly, there's some cut enemies. Robotic bear enemies that never got a name, and golden mech crabs were also removed before launch. There was also sprites for Freddy being able to move diagonally, but that was removed as well. Dead by Daylight stage performance. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, Dead by Daylight had a FNAF crossover, and in the FNAF themed map, there's a stage performance by Chica, Bonnie, and Freddy when the generator in the main building is turned on. Not a whole lot to say about this one, but there's some more Easter eggs in this map that I'll talk about later. FNAF 4 The Final Chapter. One of the teaser images, among many for FNAF 4, was of Nightmare Freddy holding a hat and text reading "The Final Chapter." And while this may have been the end of the numbered FNAF games, it certainly wasn't the end for the franchise. I don't think it was meant to be the end. I mean, lore-wise, it wasn't even close. Sister Location, the game after, was so important lore-wise, not to mention, everything else. But maybe this was originally intended on being the last game. That clearly ended up not being the case, but it'd be crazy to imagine if this was gonna be the final game. Freddy's original mechanic. In the original FNAF, Freddy was never originally meant to move around the diner, and was only meant to get you if your time ran out. This was changed before release, but weird facts like this, early development stuff, can be found in-game. Yeah, in FNAF 3's newspapers, there's bits about Scott making the games, as Easter eggs. Another one of the interesting little Easter eggs he included was a quote saying, "Before I began work on FNAF, I had to choose what game I had to make out of 3 potential games, knowing it might be my last try before having to start a new career. I was choosing between a sequel to Desolate Hope, a remake of my first game, Legacy of Flan, or a new idea about animatronics and security cameras." So clearly he ended up choosing the right decision. Freddy and Friends on Tour and Glitch Trap Puzzle on Tour. Freddy and Friends on Tour is an animated series that was made to help promote the release of Security Breach. The episodes combined make up around 7 minutes of show, and at a glance it's charming, nice, nothing too deep. That is, unless you catch the pop-ins of characters from Security Breach. or just full-blown characters walking in front of the screen. But there's a lot more to this series aside from these flashes of security breach characters. There's frames full of purple and bits of yellow that make up Glitch Trap when combined. Just an insane puzzle to solve in a short little animated series. It's a very unique way to advertise the game's release. Golden Cupcake. The Golden Cupcake is a yellow Mr. Cupcake counterpart that appears in FNAF 3, but they only show up as a picture to replace a drawing of Toy Bonnie on Cam 4. There's not too much we know about this character. From its official render image found in the Freddy files, the Golden Cupcake is just the original cupcake reskinned, with yellow frosting. In the page where this render appears, it suggested that the Golden Cupcake was used by some version of Chica with the phrase, "Chica's Golden Cupcake Pizzas." Outside of that, we really don't know much about this character. Halloween decorations in 1 through 4. For FNAF 1 through 4, there's been Halloween updates, normally adding decorations around the office. In 4 though, it even added brand new animatronics. This trend keeps up for some of the future games as well, just having Halloween themed events, but by far 4 is the best in my opinion. It's a whole new version of the game when you go to launch it on Steam, adding tons of new animatronics, some of them being very clearly Halloween themed. Help Wanted multiplayer mode. There's several files in a folder called Multiplayer in Help Wanted. The folder contains files named Character Info Table, Multiplayer Game Mode, stuff like that. So we know a multiplayer mode was scrapped, but what would it have looked like? Well, it turns out there was quite a lot of work put into it, including a map, menus, and more. This mode being worked on was called Flashlight Freeze. There was a single player and multiplayer version of it being worked on, but the gist of it is that a player, or AI for single player, would be the animatronic wandering around the map. The other player would be someone holding a flashlight that when shined at the animatronic would stun them for 5 seconds. And then after that 5 seconds was over, there was another random chance to get stunned again. So it seems like this would have been a cat and mouse type game. When the code was found, tons of YouTubers made videos on it thinking this would finally be the FNAF multiplayer they wanted, but unfortunately it was never added to the game. Incorrect puppet in Cam 08. The puppet is in FNAF 3 as a phantom version of itself, just like many other animatronics that appear. But for some reason, the puppet appears on the cameras as well. This would be fine if it looked like a phantom one, but it doesn't. It's the same look as it had in the second game. You could write this off as a hallucination, sure, but why does Mangle appear in their phantom form? Honestly, this could just be Scott not really thinking about it, but it is also Scott Cawthon. If you guys have some lore explanation theory as to why the puppet is physically being there, tell me in the comments. Jumpscare WS COD animations. There's animations of the withered animatronics and Balloon Boy jumping at you before freezing mid-air, left over in the files of Help Wanted. The names of the animations are all suffixed with jumpscare_WS. They were going to be used in the Curse of Dreadbear's Trick or Treat level, but instead they just sat in the files unused. Kind of unsettling to see them just freeze as they're about to kill you. Mangle had a parrot. The first teaser that showed Mangle showed them having a hook, hinting at them being pirate-themed like Foxy. But when we see Mangle in-game, there is no hook. I mean, they're dismantled, so it makes sense, but what is that other endoskeleton head there? A semi-popular theory is that this head could have been for a parrot. Personally, I like to believe it. There's not a whole lot to go off of for this, but it would make sense if it was pirate-themed. I could also see it being some other type of head that was going to be used for the main animatronic, like the eye does seem to be the same one in the finished head. Maybe they were just working on it. But I like to think that this other attachment was possibly an animatronic parrot. I mean, like I said, it fits the theme clearly, but also could have been extremely similar to what we see with Rockstar Foxy, having a parrot on their shoulder. This is also as good a time as any to bring up Mangle's gender, a question that I remember being tossed around a lot when the second game came out, and it's probably gonna come up more when this movie comes out. Came out? I'm in the past scripting, but as I'm doing voiceover, well, I've seen the movie now. Anyways, animatronics, despite being robots, do sometimes have a canon gender. There's the ones we know of the kids turning into them, like with the original animatronics, we know all of them are male except for Chica. So there's those that do have a, canonized gender, but there's also just community-decided ones, and ones that, through games like Ultimate Custom Night, refer to gender and we can assume off of that. But for Mangle's gender, the answer is always just, I don't know. Like Scott Cawthon even commented on it on a Steam post saying, okay, People have been asking me about Mangle's gender for almost a year now, and I think it's the time that I finally answer the burning question about whether Mangle is a boy or girl, so that the community can finally put this behind them. The answer is yes. Yeah, he just didn't say anything. Mangle doesn't seem to really have a canon gender, it's just both, and now that I'm recording the voiceover, I can say, yeah, of course they don't talk about it in the movie. They don't really talk about the gender of any animatronics in the movie. Nightmare Puffs. I normally wouldn't cover an entry like this because Nightmare Puffs is just a FNAF cereal. You know, it's kind of interesting, sold exclusively at FYE, but oh my gosh, I don't know what they were thinking with the back of the box. Yeah, I got jump scared by that while researching it, so I figured I definitely should at least include this. It's a pretty standard chocolate cereal. Like I said, it was only sold at FYE, and now it's completely out of production. But like I said, Daco does a video on everything FNAF themed, and he did a whole video dedicated just to this cereal. Phone Call in FNAF 4. I'm playing it in the background of this entry, but in FNAF 4 there's a 1 in 40 chance on night 1 and a 1 in 200 chance on night 2 and onwards for a reversed, low-pitched, slowed version of Phone Guy's Night 1 call from the first game to be heard as background ambience. It plays in short fragments, going up and down in volume randomly. It's an Easter egg that's hard to tell it's even there. Before reversing the audio with the program, it just sounds like nothing, but when you reverse it, it does sound pretty similar to the original, just a bit unsettling. Pizzeria. In the first game's demo, in the Help Wanted part of the newspaper, the word pizzeria was misspelled. It was quickly changed, but I can't judge. Scripting this up to this entry, I kept typing pizzeria wrong. I don't know how I learned about this at the age of 20. I've been misspelling it for 2 decades now. Puppet on strings. In FNAF 2, there's an unused texture of the puppet's full body attached to strings. The name of the texture is Puppet in Office, meaning that the puppet may have originally appeared in the office, but the only other thing we know about this texture is that in the code, the pathing for it kinda just moves the puppet above the top of the screen. So it wasn't ever in a finished state. Unfortunately, we never got to see what the implemented version of this looked like, but it may have actually physically appeared in the office without immediately killing you. Recovery Team 12's bodies. In Secret of the Mimic, we can come across Recovery Team 12. They were a team of at least 7 Fazbear employees sent to Murray's Costume Manor before Arnold, the main character of the game. They were all sent out and ended up encountering the Mimic, who eventually killed them, stuffing their bodies into different mascot suits by the time Arnold got there. And we can even see their bodies throughout the game just stuffed in these bloodied mascots. Staffbot Family. In Security Breach, we can come across a Staffbot family, many people believing this is a representation of the Afton family, but what's really interesting about these bots is that there's cut dialogue for them. This is that dialogue.
I am home.
You are home early.
I quit my job.
What about the children? We have a down payment on a new closet.
I do not know what I was thinking. I was compelled to leave my post.
This is no longer working. I am leaving.
Do not go.
May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
Kinda crazy that all of that got cut. Granted, it is an Easter egg, but it would have been nice to see this actually in the game, not just left over in the files. Shattered Monty's death roll. When Monty gets damaged, his jump scare actually changes. His original jump scare is pretty basic, biting into your head, but his new one when he's all damaged is a death roll, something real-life alligators do as well. Unused staff bots. I thought some parts of these games got a lot cut, but oh my gosh, there are tons of staff bot variants that went unused. There's the Alien staff bot that was meant to be in the Phaser Blast arena, Laser staff bot that was meant to be in the same area, probably is a different look for the Instructor bot, Crash Dummy bot that was meant for Roxy Raceway, used to test drive carts, Nanny staff bot, Server staff bot that was going to be used in the different food areas in the Pizzaplex, Fry Cook staff bot, same thing, and a Mime staff bot that would have performed at the daycare theater, which I don't think I've mentioned this before. I don't know why I would have. Bit of me lore. I went to State for miming in theater. A weird experience that I kind of forget a lot of people don't know. Yeah, I was a mime. That was a weird experience. There's also a golf player staff bot that was going to be used at Monty's Gator Golf, a sales staff bot, which we have the code for but no image, a sombrero staff bot, and lastly an usher staff bot, who was going to be in the VIP room, a cut room from Security Breach. It's just insane how many variants of this bot ended up getting cut. A couple of these do remain in the game in a damaged state, but all of the fully non-damaged ones were completely modeled and never made it in. World record. Five Nights at Freddy's has the world record for most video game sequels in a year, since 2015. I forgot how fast these games had come out. Within a year, there was FNAF 2 in November of 2014, FNAF 3 in March of 2015, and FNAF 4 in July of 2015. It's just crazy to think that all of the numbered FNAF games, including the first one, came out within 349 days, not even a full year. That's just unfathomable. U2's Presents. As a part of U2's getting a FNAF line of figures, a mobile augmented reality game was released. Being the player, you have to lure the U2's animatronics back into their boxes after they break out, using their light sensors. You have to do this while surviving the in-game timer, trying to make it to 6 AM. Even though it's a very goofy, short mobile game, it is a really unique collaboration. As of 2024, the app's no longer available, but it was pretty neat while it lasted. Tier 4, Sock Puppet. Alongside the texture just named Mike, in the files of FNAF 2 there's also a texture for a sock puppet, but we don't have a sock puppet character. This texture wasn't used. Well, we wouldn't see this texture used, but we would eventually get a sock puppet character, just 5 years later. In Freddy in Space 2, there's a boss in the Stellar Pit section called Sock Puppet. In FNAF 2, this may have been a planned character that got scrapped, possibly just something in one of the rooms as a background item, but we'll probably never know. At least we got a character with a name, even if it did take 5 years. Sister Location Double Meaning. Sister Location and a handful of other FNAF games titles seem to have a double meaning. Sister Location as in the location of Mike's sister, and the actual other business location for Circus Baby's Pizza World. The whole double meaning thing can also be seen for Pizzeria Simulator, Help Wanted, and Special Delivery. Pizzeria Simulator being, well, simulating making a pizzeria, but also a pizzeria being simulated to lure in the animatronics. Help Wanted for needing help to get William out of the game, and Special Delivery simply referring to delivering a package with how the animatronics are being shipped to your house, but could also be in the sense of, I sent them a little delivery, as in something bad. Some of the ones past Sister Location are a bit of a stretch, but Sister Location is for sure a very clear double meaning. 8-bit FNAF World Overworld. When FNAF World first came out, the entire overworld was all 8-bit themed, like the mini-games from the mainline series. This would be changed to a 3D overworld, being like the style in all gameplay outside of the overworld, which was kind of jarring swapping styles all the time. I loved this game in this state, but going from 8-bit to super high fidelity and back, it was really weird. Animation Content Farms. There's a few channels on YouTube that are known as Animation Content Farms. This isn't exclusive to FNAF, but there's a lot of them for this franchise. These content farms basically have a group of people all working on animations non-stop and upload around 3 to 5 times a week, sometimes uploading the same video back to back to get more views. One of the biggest examples of this is with Jay's Cinema, an iconic content farm that just spam uploads FNAF animations. They're not bad by any means. I mean, some of them are generic, like just idle animations of animatronics, but they just upload so much to grind out money from YouTube. Baldi's Basics and Nightmares. Now there's a lot of fan games on this iceberg I skipped, just because I'm not going to cover the same 7 format games that's just X trademarked character, but this one really stood out. I know a good handful of you are here from that Baldi's Basics iceberg I did, and this is a crossover between that game and FNAF. Baldi's Basics and Nightmares is a fan game with all the characters, sounds, and setting from Baldi's. Most fan games can be pretty standard, you know, the animatronics not looking very scary, but implied by the name, these are nightmare versions of the Baldi's characters. Basically, they're terrifying. The whole game is very unique compared to most fan games, and seeing a really well done crossover game like this is kinda rare. Ballora Controlled Shock. There's an unused image of Ballora getting a controlled shock in Sister Location. You're able to do this in the final game, but this shock plate has her faceplate open, and it just looks way more violent. Speaking of Ballora, How does she move? When asked in a Steam discussion post, Scott Cawthon responded with, "I'll be honest, I hadn't thought about it, but I would imagine that she actually glides on a track most of the time, but after leaving the track, she uses all 4 limbs to crawl around, more like a spider. I don't think she walks anywhere." So she's basically either dancing gracefully or climbing the walls like Mangle. So Ballora crawls like a spider. That image I can't get out of my head, but Scott said it, so I guess it's canon. Bonnie's black bow tie. For one of the anniversaries, we got behind the scenes screenshots of the making of the first game, and in one of these screenshots we got to see the making of Bonnie, and most of it looks the same to what we got in full release, aside from the bow tie. It was black instead of red. Not too much to this entry, but the red was for sure a better choice. This design overall just looks a lot more dull. Danglers used a fan design. Just Toys is a big company for getting any form of toy made for a game series. They've also got shows too, but games in particular are a massive part of their merchandise. And one of the more popular bits of merch they had was for Five Nights at Freddy's, having these danglers, people call them. And the designs for these danglers were based off fan designs. I couldn't find the exact designs, so it's more hearsay here, but this company is for sure one of the biggest parts of FNAF merch. And in particular, I wanted to mention the danglers because I looked to my left while scripting, and there they are on my wall. I completely forgot I had a Foxy and Bonnie one of these. Dead by Daylight Endo in the Vent. Sorry for the aspect ratio, it's hard playing this game after the Walking Dead update. I don't really want to go into there, so credit to Guy McDude for this footage. But as a part of the FNAF update to Dead by Daylight, there was a whole FNAF themed pizzeria map. And on this map, there's a couple jump scares that aren't just by the killer. In the side room, you can see an endoskeleton jump at you from the vents. Just a neat Easter egg, and it for sure jump scared me a good bit. DLC Rabbit. In the files of Security Breach Ruin is a model called DLC Rabbit, a really messed up looking rabbit. And some people thought this was possibly a scrapped character, but it shares a lot of the same animations as the entity, has a similar color palette, size, and the entity's model is called DLC Rabbit New. So the entity was originally gonna look like this, much creepier. And while I think the new design we have now is less creepy, the more digital look was for sure for the better. Doggo. This is Doggo, Doggo's scrapped cameo for the first FNAF movie. This was revealed in the 2024 Thankmas stream by Doggo. He was set to have a cameo as a Doggo character. Yeah, we don't really know much about this character aside from he was just gonna be a fursuiter in the movie. But Doggo did make some other cameos in the movies. In the first FNAF movie, being the Employee of the Month for July, alongside other YouTubers, but also in the second movie. In the background here, he's dressed up as Bonnie, alongside a lot of other famous FNAF YouTubers. Ennard's eyebrow. Between teasers for Sister Location, some things needed to be changed. Tiny details that were missed. One of them being that Ennard just didn't have a right eyebrow. Tiny detail, but FNAF fans will dig into every frame of every video, every image, just to find anything secret. But this also wasn't exclusive to the trailers, for some reason. It seemed to be a reoccurring oversight. When I was recording Help Wanted 2, I noticed the eyebrow was more of an outline instead of just nothing. And honestly, I can't give you a reason as to why this is. It seems like just a really odd inconsistency. And it's not like the eyebrow wasn't on the mask that Ennard took. Looking at it here, it for sure is there. It's a really weird design choice. Fan cupcake model at PAX East Help Wanted demo. A demo of Help Wanted from PAX East had a cupcake model that was different compared to the final game, the main difference being the wrapper and frosting. Why did this model change? Well, it turns out this was a fan-made model created by Super Kerbin in 2015. This didn't go over well, so it was changed very soon after. Another part of this build that was just kind of odd was Nightmare Fredbear was originally brown for some reason, rather than his yellow golden color he's supposed to have. His hat and bow tie were also originally black, making him look more like the standard Freddy Fazbear. In the final game, these colors were changed to yellow and purple, but it's weird how many design inconsistencies were in this demo. FNAF plushies in Steven Universe. For some reason, the FNAF plushies of Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy just appear in the Steven Universe comics. They hold no relevance, just kind of being there as an Easter egg, but I certainly wouldn't expect them to be in Steven Universe out of all things. FNAF 3's map is Animdude. Animdude is Scott Cawthon's old username, and that name turned into a character in FNAF World, who's just Scott. Yeah, he's just in FNAF World as his own character. It's weird. Anyways, it's supposedly just a coincidence, and probably is because it's not perfect, but if you flip the FNAF 3 map upside down, it looks just like AnimDude. Also, AnimDude is still the username Scott uses on certain websites like Reddit. FNAF Abyss. This is very much speculative and not a whole lot is confirmed here, but we do know that Steel Wool is making another FNAF game. It was confirmed by Scott in Daco's second interview. And there's tons of hints by people who work with Steel Wool and Scott, stuff at PAX West, as to what this game could be like. There's too much to talk about in just an entry here, but the general consensus is that something is in the making. Something people are calling FNAF Abyss, and there's a lot of hints to it being tied to Ruin. There's not a whole lot of concrete information here outside of it being a thing that is being made, but we'll see. Sometime soon we may get an announcement for a FNAF Abyss. FNAF World enemies on the desk. In Ultimate Custom Night, sometimes you'll encounter enemies from FNAF World on the desk. It's a pretty rare Easter egg, but there's multiple variations you can encounter, like Bounce Pot, Tangle, and White Rabbit. Game Lab. Back when YouTube Red was a thing, I gave a couple of you flashbacks there were exclusive videos by people like Game Theory on the subscription. This one eventually was made free, but they had a FNAF-themed one, where a whole massive set was made to have a real-life FNAF experience for a video, with people dressed up as animatronics, an old monitor being used to view all the security cameras. It was pretty cool. People cycled through after getting killed a security guard, and I'm gonna show some footage, but epilepsy warning, because a lot of this is kind of insane. I was getting serious headaches from it. I'll leave a description in the video as well. It's just kind of crazy how well done this production was. And it's still available to be watched on Game Theory for free. Mangle calls the police. I can't really credit the person who made this theory, but there's not a whole lot I can say about the direct post they made about it on Reddit, and their account is deleted. But it's about what they think Mangle's static sounds mean, and it's really interesting. I'll read it for you here. Remember how the animatronics are tied into a criminal database, and therefore are likely in frequent contact with the police? They have radios installed inside of them. Therefore, I present you the most probable theory about it you'll ever find. Mangle's erratic static is a police scanner, trying to get a signal, because if you listen closely, on the radio they say 10-1. On police radios, this means bad reception. This is Mangle trying to get in contact with the police, but can't because Mangle's broken. It's an intriguing theory. Also, when you clean up the audio, don't worry, I won't destroy your eardrums with it because it's still hurting my ears. It really sounds like a recording of someone saying, "Hello? There's a little boy missing his frontal lobe. He's not doing so well." So maybe it's Mangle trying to contact the police about past events, but can't, or maybe an old recording. Some people say it's just a stock sound, but trying my best I couldn't find the supposed stock sound. It's a part of FNAF 2 that's kind of just gone untalked about for ages. Moon Plush Jump Scare. A harder survival mode was being worked on for Security Breach before being scrapped entirely, and there were some things exclusive to this mode that we never got to see finished, like a jump scare by the Moon Plush, and one by Plush Baby as well. It really stinks this mode was scrapped since it would have been a lot more difficult, having exclusive content as well. I mean, it would have been this game's difficult mode. From what we know that's left over in the code, it would have also had a time limit and limited life count. It would have been extremely hard. Pizzaplex in Help Wanted. Before the release of Security Breach, the Pizzaplex appeared in Help Wanted. People didn't know at the time that this was gonna be the next game, and yeah, the entire mall being constructed is in the game as an Easter egg. Just a bit insane of an Easter egg, showing off the whole location of the next game. Soul Dozer's origin. The boss Soul Dozer from FNAF World isn't originally from FNAF World. It was from one of Scott's earlier games, The Pilgrim's Progress, the video game, a game adaptation of a book. The style of the boss didn't change at all, but it's really jarring seeing the footage of him in the old game now. He just seems so out of place. Spring Bonnie Help Wanted model. In the files of Help Wanted is an entire, pretty well-made model of Spring Bonnie. This wouldn't be used in the game, but it looks like it was ready to be. Seeing a fully fledged, high-fidelity Spring Bonnie in the game would have been amazing. It really sucks that it was cut. Stealing movie posters. When the first FNAF movie came out, it was a big trend to steal the posters and cardboard cutouts for the movie. I don't really know what people were expecting when they were arrested for it, but some people got away fine with a sick piece of memorabilia that most people will probably never get to see in real life again. Oh, and this also happened for the second movie as well. Currently, there's a really funny video of someone dressed up as Purple Guy stealing a poster for the movie. Tater the Waiter Gator. Tater the Waiter Gator was a fan-made animatronic 11 years ago. He was a part of a hoax, being rumored to be in FNAF 2. He clearly wasn't, but it's really cool getting to go back and look on this idea, because Monty is a thing now. Back then, when FNAF was in its early days, I really wanted a gator animatronic, and a good number of other people did as well. So looking back and seeing this, comparing it to Monty now, is just a nice experience. The Escapist 2 controversy. The Escapist 2 lockdown music is quite literally just the main menu theme of Sister Location, but slightly edited. I'll play the 2 for you here so you can see for yourself. Here's Escapist 2. And here's Sister Location. Yeah, this sparked a good bit of controversy, but nothing came out of it. Escapist 2 just still has this music in their game. If it's a coincidence, which I highly doubt it is, it's an insane one. Tina/Arnold the Endoskeleton. This is Endo. or Arnold? This endoskeleton was named Tina by the film crew and Arnold by Scott Cawthon, but this Endo character has shown up as a sort of Easter egg in the FNAF movie. There's tons of pictures of it behind the scenes working with the crew, but even in the movie it can be seen in the background, alongside a main appearance in the training tape, being the whole focus of the shot. But the 2 hidden locations are when Mike is cleaning up the kitchen, it can be seen watching from a distance, and the second hidden appearance is it can be seen behind Chica on the stage. This one a lot harder to see. I'm sure there's probably other appearances we haven't caught of them, because wow, those were extremely hard to spot. And who knows, it might be in the second movie. I've seen the second movie, but considering it's only in theaters at the time of recording, we can't really super analyze everything. Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. is a sequel to Chipper & Sons Lumber Company, which is just crazy to start. I mean, this game hardly gets talked about in the first place, and when it does, it's relating to FNAF World, but they captured the whole feel and style of the previous game perfectly. It's just a really good fan game that's super unique and got a good following. There's really not that many references to Chipper & Sons in the actual FNAF franchise, so having a whole fan-made sequel is just amazing. Ultra Custom Night. I cannot fathom how the mind of someone who comes up with this even works. Ultra Custom Night is the ultimate custom night of fan games, including characters from fan games like FNAF Pocket Horror, Fazbear Tycoon, rest in peace, the recently mentioned Tyke & Sons Lumber Co., Pop Goes, and Undertale? Wait, what? That's not related. This fan game is an absolute fever dream. I mean, it's basically a Smash Bros. Level crossover between tons of different games. Somehow, it has 873 characters. Tons of maps, mini-games, weird mechanics that'll confuse you, an absurd amount of updates. I mean, this game is just insane. If I had to call one fan game the most crazy, it's by far this one. Tier 5. Reticulating Splines. In Security Breach, after you deactivate the security protocols in Music Man's ballroom, Dread Unit begins to go haywire, spitting out jumbled phrases and words. One of these phrases he says is reticulating splines.
Protocols, reticulating splines.
That phrase being an iconic phrase from the games Maxis made, the developers of the older Sims games. While the term has a literal technical meaning of a network of curved elements, this phrase was used as a placeholder. The original phrase was used because the developers thought it, quote, sounded cool, and it became an inside joke for fans of the games. Security Breach is for sure one of the last places I'd expect to see this. Beta Endo 01. In FNAF 1's Steam Greenlight and the original trailer, Freddy's endoskeleton looked a bit different from the final build. Freddy's endo head from the game's Steam Greenlight icon, while appearing almost the same, has triangular metal-looking teeth, while both of the glossy black eyes have more metallic textures, with the irises being colored red rather than white. This endo also had rectangular nostrils, but the eyes were the main difference. Seeing red eyes in game like how the movie did their hunting mode would have been really freaky. Bilge Rat. In the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted, there's a Foxy Pirate Ride minigame where you go around shooting at cardboard cutouts, called an interactive dark ride. Didn't know they had a name, but you get a score for hitting each cardboard cutout, your score changing your ending rank. And if you get a low enough rank, getting between 0 and 1,000 score, you get jump scared. This is one of the more rare jump scares in the entire franchise, since who's not gonna hit anything? Bonnie defies the laws of physics. On the poster in the office of FNAF 1, it shows Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy all on stage, but Bonnie isn't standing? If you really zoom in, you can see that Bonnie's actually floating, and when asked in a Steam post about it, Scott replied, "Bonnie does not abide by the rules of time, space, or physics." Camera flash animatronic glitches. In Security Breach, by timing the flash of a camera just right, you can avoid dying after getting jump scared. There's a speedrun category dedicated to getting every single jump scare in the game, and this is pretty much an essential part of it. Custom Night 1987 code in FNAF 2. In the code of FNAF 2, there's a trigger for doing Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy to 1987 in the Custom Night mode. This doesn't do anything, but it is still in the game. So there was originally gonna be something when you did this, maybe a Golden Freddy jump scare like in the first game, but it ended up getting cut. Dreadbear in the hallway level. From early screenshots of the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted, there were images of Dreadbear appearing in the hallway level. And these were pretty iconic images. You know, they look nice, they were used in a lot of thumbnails, people were excited to see what this looks like when they got their hands on the game. But Dreadbear never appeared in these levels. After these images came out, when the DLC released, you can just never encounter Dreadbear in any of the hallways of the game. Flesh inside White Tiger plush. In Secret of the Mimic, the plushie of the tiger has flesh inside of it. Why is it inside a plushie? Well, lore-wise, we don't really have a reason. At least not a confirmed one. This plushie is likely a scaled-down model of the actual one that chases you around, so that would seemingly be why it has flesh. But it's odd they did this considering you can see what's inside. It'd be really creepy if it turns out there's actually a lore explanation as to why there's flesh inside of a plush. Freddy's son. Freddy actually has a son. Yeah, the story of Freddy in Space 2 revolves around saving his son. This game is just really weird. There's also another entry relating to Freddy in Space that I initially cut, but considering it's on YouTube, I guess it's okay. The sequel to this game, Freddy in Space 3, has a NSFW island. Yeah, that's definitely something Scott Cawthon made. I'm showing it on screen right now. It's for charity though, so it's okay he decided to make this for some reason. German Steam blocking. Germany has some pretty strict laws when it comes to game ratings. They need an official rating just to be played, and since the older FNAF games don't have that, you just can't play them in Germany. The Steam versions at least. To get any game on console, it does need to be rated, so the console versions of these games are fine, but since those are technically different versions, and Scott hasn't submitted the old PC games for a rating, they're unfortunately unable to be played. Glitchtrap's original design. This is Glitchtrap's original design. You may think, oh, that just looks like Springtrap though. Yeah, I guess it might have been a placeholder, but if it was, why use the animations on the finalized Glitchtrap with it? I don't know. I could totally see this being the design they were gonna go for, but I'm really glad they didn't. Glitchy Gravestone. On the Game Over screen for the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, one of these gravestones turns all glitched. By hacking the game, you can get a closer look at it, and it has the same effect that the tapes have in the base game, very much hinting to a connection with the Glitchtrap, them still being around, corrupting the game. Lolbit's eyebrows. Similar to Ennard, Lolbit also has inconsistent eyebrows. In different merchandise and appearances in the game, they just show up with and without eyebrows. It's just weird how there's not one solid design they just pull from. Mr. Cupcake Locker Jump Scare. On the Dead by Daylight FNAF map, there's a Mr. Cupcake jump scare that's worse than any of the other ones on the map. When entering this locker, this'll happen. People calling pizza places. When FNAF first came out, and again a few months before Sister Location was released, there was a big problem with kids calling real-life pizzerias, thinking that FNAF was real. Scott addressed this multiple times, telling them to stop, but it was a pretty big issue that lasted quite a while. Scott's personal photos in FNAF 4. FNAF 4 has some pictures around the house, and it turns out these pictures are of real-life places and parts of Scott Cawthon's life. When asked about it, he said, "Along these same lines, keep that in mind. I do tend to use pictures of me and my family in these games, just because they're so readily available. My little boy Jason is the face of the one you should not have killed in Ultimate Custom Night. I'll share the original sometime. He looks sweet as an angel in the original picture, and I turned him into a monster. In FNAF 4, I used a picture of a mountain range I took while I was a truck driver in West Texas. I also used a picture of a snowman that me and my older sons made together, and also used a picture of a pet mockingbird we nursed back to health one year. So yeah, all of the images around the house in FNAF 4 are just pictures Scott took throughout his life. Also having his son as the one you should not have killed, that's so sick. Secret of the Mimic 4th ending. There's some strings of text left over in Secret of the Mimic that talk about a planned but scrapped 4th ending. It reads, Ending 4, redeemed, good ending. You override Mimic using the profile of the inventor himself. Mimic becomes locked in to the inventor's persona. The game ends with the Mimic at his son's grave, mourning the loss of his child. Aside from this text, we don't really know much else about this ending, but it's theorized that this was scrapped and reworked in favor of the 3rd ending. Springtrap's alpaca noises. The sounds Springtrap makes when he's walking around in FNAF 3 are actually alpaca sounds. In the files, we can see it's still labeled as Animals Alpacas. They're heavily distorted, so it's extremely hard to tell, but Springtrap just makes alpaca sounds. The Hug. Just before Halloween 2018, Hulu released a short horror film. It was called The Hug, and it was completely inspired off of FNAF. This time though, instead of a bear, chicken, fox, or rabbit, it was an animatronic panda. The panda, Pandori, ended up swallowing a kid whole after, well, hugging them too hard with claws. The short ends with a worker checking out the animatronic, and the kid's hand jets out before cutting to credits. 20 2 FPS win. In FNAF 1, you can beat the hardest mode by doing absolutely nothing. The animatronics are programmed to only start going after you open the cameras, but that's just Chica, Bonnie, and Freddy. For Foxy, he pretty quickly runs and kills you if you do nothing, right? So that means you wouldn't be able to do nothing and win. That is unless you run your game at a very low frame rate. Foxy is different from the other animatronics. After 1500 frames have passed, he'll start his run down the hall, but frames and time are counted separate, so if you run your game at 2 FPS, you can beat 20 mode by being completely AFK. 3D Corner Store. Scott Cawthon, or Animdude, his old username, had done quite a lot of stuff on the internet before FNAF. Some of his oldest content we found being on 3D Corner Store, a now archived website containing old asset packs Scott had for sale. And these are extremely old, being from 2002. But what's way more interesting, in my opinion, are his old animated films. There's an absurd amount of animated movies he's made, all on YouTube. They have that, well, literal 2001 CGI look, but it has charm. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to pre-FNAF Scott Cawthon content that I'll most likely make a separate video on it. Baby in the Biddy Babs teaser. In the Biddy Babs teaser for Sister Location, we can see Baby in the background. It's really hard to see on normal brightness, but when brightened, it's clearly Baby. This was common for FNAF teasers, almost all of them having something if you brighten the image, but this one is way creepier than most. Bears are extinct in the FNAF universe. There's unused hand unit dialogue in Security Breach that tells us bears are now extinct in the FNAF universe. It reads, "Did you know that bears like pizza sauce more than honey? It's true. Before their extinction, bears were known to attack pizza delivery trucks more than any other food service vehicles." This has been another fun Faz fact. So I guess it's canon that bears are extinct, though the dialogue was cut, so not entirely. But at least at one point, bears were going to be completely extinct in the FNAF universe. A very interesting choice to make. Bunny Call was based on a real experience. Bunny Call is the 5th Fazbear Frights book, an anthology FNAF series, with the Bunny's Call being based off a real experience Scott Cawthon had. In the second doco interview with Scott, it was revealed that the book was based off an experience at a family summer camp. He had signed up his 2 oldest sons at the time, around 13 and 14 years old, for a quote, panda's call. Something that doesn't really, well, fit the name at all. The panda call was, if signed up for, a sort of scare for your family. So camp counselors dressed up as killer clowns early in the morning would come into your cabin and scare your kids awake. So Scott thought this would be funny and woke up early to greet the clowns. But while waiting outside, knowing that there were people dressed up as killer clowns in the bushes outside to scare his family, he got cold feet about it, canceling it when the counselors came. He said that it was such a scary experience that it would go on to become its own Fazbear Frights book. If you read Bunny's Call, it's pretty clear how inspired the story was off that experience. Instead of Panda Call, Bunny Call, and basically everything from real life was turned into a story. Distorted Chica. In the files of the Curse of Dreadbear DLC are a model for Distorted Chica. In the Curse of Dreadbear start menu, withered Bonnie and Chica can be seen standing off in the distance, staring at the player. But originally, withered Chica was replaced by a distorted, mangled-looking Chica, with her eyes missing, beak detached, and her arm disjointed. We don't know why this was changed to a normal withered Chica, but this would have been a lot creepier, being its own unique version of a messed up animatronic. Door pounding in FNAF 1. In the first game, there's a 1 in 50 chance every 10 seconds for metal door pounding to be heard in the background, ranging in volume. This can be heard at any point during the night, even while the monitor is up, and Scott Cawthon has refused to elaborate on what the source of the sound could be. In one of Daco's stream chats saying, "Who's to say? Could be anything. Winky face." And this stream was in 2021, so since then we've still gotten nothing. Freddy in Space 2 Lego bricks. In the files of Freddy in Space 2, there's 2 different Lego brick textures. These were never used or mentioned by Scott Cawthon at all. We actually just don't know why they're there. Possibly could have been intended on being in the game and there was some weird rights issue, but probably just made and forgot about. FNAF 4 trailer's jump scare. In the trailer for FNAF 4, there was a jump scare by Nightmare Bonnie, but the sound was a bit different. This early jump scare sound effect uses a different sound sample for the first part, making it louder and almost animal-like, with the other half still being the same weird alien pregnancy movie scream. This jump scare sound, in my opinion, is way scarier. Also, as of scripting, I just got back from seeing the second FNAF movie. I got the Freddy bucket. It's really weird. But also, right after getting home, I decided to boot up FNAF 4 for the first time in half a decade. That game is so much scarier than I remember. Kellen Goff auditioned for William. Kellen Goff is the voice actor of Funtime Freddy, Glamrock Freddy, Sun, Moon, and Foxy and Toy Freddy in the movies. Well, Kellen also had an audition for voicing William, and on Game Theory's livestream was able to show off what it sounded like. This is what could have been William's voice in the games.
So this is your audition for William?
Yeah, this is my audition for
All right,
William.
let's do it.
I feel there are elements of this design that perhaps you don't fully understand.
Mrs. Schmidt's suicide. In the original script for the first movie, Mike's mother would have ended her life after the disappearance of Garrett and her husband leaving her. This was ultimately cut to keep the PG-13 rating, but wow, that would have taken a lot darker of a tone. Nightmare Fredbear floor clipping. When Scott Cawthon was putting Nightmare Fredbear in the closet, instead of separating the head from the model for it, he kinda just shoved the whole model in there. It's hard to show off this image, so I made a really scuffed representation. Yeah, Nightmare Fredbear's body is just kinda beneath the map, and you can sorta tell looking at the bottom of the head. Quid Nightmare Springtrap. So for all FNAF merchandise, the designs have to be approved by Scott himself, including small merchandise like with MyMojis. And while a lot of designs may go unused, they still need to be approved and have a form of production done with them. So while never put into market, the design of a Nightmare Springtrap was approved by Scott himself. It's just super cool to see a design of a character we'll likely never see. Nightmare Springtrap is such a cool idea and a design that people have wanted an official one of for such a long time. But to this day, a Nightmare Springtrap design, even if it is non-canon, has never been official. Scott planned the vibes of the games. In the first Scott Cawthon interview with Daco, Scott revealed that the whole feel of the FNAF games were all planned in advance, describing the second one as a lot more chaotic, third a more personal experience, and 4, quote, unique, but also the overall color palette. 2, he was wanting to be more industrial, while 3, he felt a greenish hue would match best, and 5, really wanting a mix of blues and purples. So most of the general design of these games and aesthetic was planned from the very start. Sister location animatronic names were leaked. For registering copyright, everything is public information in the US, meaning all the names of sister location animatronics were known quite early on in the making of the game. Scott knew this, so when posts were going around being made over all the new names, he took it pretty well, stating, "No worries guys, the characters needed to be copyrighted, and I knew this would get out. Have fun speculating. Luckily, a lot of the names just meant nothing, like seeing Ennard pre-sister location is just a name. You're not gonna get any lore spoiled for you out of that. Chef Boy RD canned food is all stored here. There's some leftover dialogue and security breach that was gonna be used in the kitchen area, but it got cut. It's an odd bit of text too. It reads, Freezer Room. Chef Boy RD canned food is all stored here. Most of the food is stored in boxes. Really weird to see a real brand in dialogue like this. My guess is they were probably just coming up with placeholder text and instead of a fake name, they just used Chef Boy RD. There are no holes in the plot. 6 years ago, there was a post to the FNAF subreddit reading, what are the biggest plot holes in FNAF? Tons of people responded with things they didn't understand, but Scott himself responded, there are no holes in the plot, only holes in your understanding. So the story of this series does make sense, just not fully to everyone with the nature of how it's told. Scott Cawthon also mentioned about how there was only a single retcon, and that was almost 9 years ago at this point. Otherwise, everything is laid out, and at least Scott and Steelwool have an understanding of what this whole complicated story is. Criminal wears Foxy mask. February 21st, 2017, a 16-year-old committed armed robbery while wearing a Foxy mask, sort of around the corner from me, in the big ol' land of Moist Critical, the Tampa Bay area, at a gas station in Riverview. According to the police report, around 3:23 a.m. is when the person entered the store armed with a shotgun. The unnamed suspect, they were minors so their name wasn't made public, demanded cash, received it, and took off. So luckily no one was hurt, but it was rumored that this person went on to go and hit other gas stations as well, but that was never confirmed. Either way, someone decided to commit armed robbery in a Foxy mask. Insane. Duck Journal Chica Skin. The Duck Journal is a community-made item for all classes in TF2. It's a yellow rubber duck that attaches to the chest of the player wearing it, and while these little ducks are already cute and amazing since they're based off TF2 characters, there was one that was going to be Chica themed. Here's the unused texture file for it. Not much points to this being Chica at first glance, but at the top we can see the Let's Eat text, just like Chica has. Would have been really weird to see in TF2 of all games. Ennard emptied out Michael's body. At the end of Sister Location, when Michael gets scooped, how exactly would his skeleton have been ripped out? People had lots of questions about how the scooper worked, and Scott Cawthon gave them answers on a Steam post. He said, I don't think any kind of single scoop to the abdomen could pull out your whole skeleton, but just image your torso as a jack-o'-lantern, and you've got the right idea. And then if something is crawling inside of you, it could probably empty out the rest. So instead of the scooper just working as a one and done, instead, Ennard would have just emptied out his insides, going in and, well, working their magic, you could call it. Ennard is behind a baby in Parts and Service. In Parts and Service and Sister Location, we can see what Ennard looks like beneath the mask, and they just look disturbing. It's really hard to see, but in the background here, you can see them. Not a whole lot to say for this entry, but they definitely look better with a mask. 5th scrap animatronic after accepting all ads. Pizzeria Sim has 4 animatronics, but originally there was gonna be a 5th. Credit to It's Taken for finding this out. But every animatronic is given a MID in Pizzeria Sim, the 4 in the game being IDs 2 through 5. So what happened to 1? Well, we sort of know. They were obviously cut alongside most of their code, but the code that does remain states that they would have been triggered if you accepted every single sponsorship deal possible. So there was possibly an ad-based animatronic at one point, but now they're gone. Golden Freddy post-death jump scare. In the first game, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance after the game over screen ends that Golden Freddy's jump scare will load instead of the title screen, and it still crashes your game. Just insult to injury at that point. Halloween Edition's Game Jolt page. The Halloween content update 2 for FNAF 4, Scott said would be posted to Game Jolt if the Steam release didn't work. Well, the Steam release did work, but he put up a version just in case. Turns out when his Game Jolt account was back in public, all of the listings he had were made public for a limited time. So some people were able to get free copies of this previously unlisted Halloween version of FNAF 4. Also, as I script this, when looking up Toy Freddy for an entry, a set of Freddy's eyes appear. I'm assuming this is because of the second movie being out, but it's a pretty cool one of those newer Google Easter eggs. Hard Quiz Contestant. On the game show called Hard Quiz, there was a FNAF movie question, where Daka was the answer.
In the film adaptation of Five Nights at Freddy's, an Employee of the Month board can be seen featuring YouTube gamers. Which gamer appears in the July panel?
Oh, Dorko?
Correct!
He was here. In the Save Them minigame in FNAF 2, there's a Mangle asset named He Was Here. Some people believe this is Mangle stating that Afton was there, which he is, but it's just a bit of an odd choice to name the asset this. Movie novels dug. Sometimes movies will get novel versions, where it's basically the story of the movie, but, you know, as a book. Well, the version that was submitted for print of the first FNAF movie's novelization was a much earlier version of the script, where the movie's Doug character was much different. The character in the novelization of the book was a creep, to say the least. I'm not gonna read what's on screen right now, but that is from the official novelization. Norman Bedroom Misconception. In the files of Help Wanted, an item in the FNAF 4 bedroom was labeled as Norman Bedroom. So this would mean the crying child is someone named Norman, right? Well, a lot of people thought that, but it turns out it was a mistake on Steel Wool's part here, for not changing file names. It was revealed that Steel Wool used an asset pack from the Unreal Engine store for the table that had this name. The pack is based on the show Bates Motel, which has a character named Norman. The whole thing was debunked pretty fast, but it was a big mix-up for a bit. Scott's mom wanted the missing children incident removed. Aside from Scott's kids testing the first game, he of course had other people as well, and some of the other suggestions for the games would have completely changed the course of the franchise. Scott mentioned in the first interview with Daco that someone recommended getting rid of Phone Guy, claiming it was a bit too much exposition, and that would have definitely changed a lot. But even bigger, Scott's mom recommended that he take the whole backstory of the missing kids out. Yeah, there's some other path that Scott could have taken if listening to his mom on this bit of advice, where we wouldn't really have a story for the game. Toys R Us ad. Toys R Us Singapore posted a Christmas short promoting toys they had, and one of them kinda just sticks out. Yeah, off to the left is a Freddy plush. He sticks out from the other Skylanders and other toys they advertised at the time. Yeah, this was 9 years ago, Skylanders wasn't 6 feet under back then. But yeah, the Freddy plush made a cameo here, and if you've seen the second FNAF movie, now every time I see a Freddy plush, you know that scene. It's stuck in my head.
Oh.
Ultimate Custom Night icon clipping. I am so sorry that I will curse you with this knowledge if you're a mobile player of these games, but the mobile Ultimate Custom Night has clipping with Balloon Boy and JJ. It's really not a big deal, but every time I've looked at this image, it's so clear. You know, aside from the red circles. It's just one of those mistakes that's really odd that they didn't fix. This also happens with some of the other characters on the mobile versions. $200 on Pizzeria Simulator's first day. Pizzeria Sim normally starts you out with $100, but if you put on onions, mushrooms, olives, and peppers on your starting pizza, your starting cash gets a bonus, going up to $200. No other topping selection does this, so I'm assuming this is Scott's favorite pizza. This seems like the type of thing he'd add just because it's his favorite. Blackbird was Scott's sleep paralysis demon. It was revealed in the second Daco interview that the creature on the cover of the Blackbird Fazbear Frights book was his sleep paralysis demon. Scott was on a vacation by himself, taking a midday nap somewhere, and woke up unable to move, seeing this blackbird standing over him. Just another terrifying experience that he turned into a Fazbear Frights. Blue Nightmare Fredbear. IGN made a post in 2018 stating that Jason Blum said that the FNAF movie was coming, quote, pretty soon. Aside from the pretty soon taking 5 years, the image they posted for the Twitter post for some reason had a hue-shifted Nightmare Fredbear, making him blue. They do know Bonnie exists, right? Like Nightmare Bonnie? They didn't need to make him blue. That's just kind of weird. Just a really odd choice for the Twitter post, and that pretty soon was, a bit longer than they anticipated. Bootleg books. For some reason, there is an absurd amount of unlicensed FNAF books that existing on sites like Amazon as well. So imagine you want to get your kid a book on this franchise and you come across one of these instead. Would just kinda suck for the kid. Not to mention that a lot of these are also not for kids. A good chunk of the listings have been taken down, which is for sure good, but the amount of these that were available is just insane. It's one thing to make a book and make it clear that it is a fan-done book, but a lot of these people were just lying about it. Tons and tons of people making fake books. Markiplier's fake Easter eggs. In the older videos by Markiplier, he'd sometimes put in Easter eggs into the video, one of the most popular being with the third game, having Golden Freddy appear in the cameras. One of the more recent ones was at the end of his Security Breach Ruin video. There was audio that he just put in post. Some people got annoyed because they were convinced it was real for a while, but it's really not that big a deal. Also, the Golden Freddy Easter egg for FNAF 3, if you look at it for more than 2 seconds, you can tell it's very, obviously edited in. Markiplier's face is also jumping around. I don't know. People got abnormally mad at this. Surviving Christmas at Freddy's. In 2018, there was a FNAF stage play that was set to take place in Harlingen, Texas. And there was even a poster made for it, and tickets sold. But this play ended up getting cancelled. It was going to be a Christmas themed play. It was called Surviving Christmas at Freddy's, and it seemed like a good chunk of work was put into this production, but nothing ever happened. What's also crazy is zooming in on the poster, that is a sponsor from Dippin' Dots. There was a lot put into this play, but aside from the poster and ticket stub, we don't know anything about it. It just never happened. Cancelled NFTs. Remember when NFTs were gonna be some massive thing? Yeah, that flopped. But back with that spike in popularity, Scott Cawthon was interested for a little bit, considering making ones based on the FNAF franchise. There was massive backlash, to say the least, and he could have gone down this terrible path where he agreed to do all of these, but ended up changing his mind in a Reddit post, saying, "Maybe the first time I've been ratioed here? Not sure. I try to do right, but sometimes things go wrong, I guess. I'm putting a stop to the NFTs. Not worth it to me. This fanbase brings me a lot of joy. Good night all." We basically just got the good ending. There's been other occurrences of NFTs in this fanbase, and one of the most iconic was awful. Candyland was that iconic mess. This was a fan game in the making that was sort of Security Breach style. Supposed to be really big, high fidelity. They even had a teaser for a show they were gonna do with it, and while I would normally jump to AI being used for all of this, I don't think so. There's no telltale signs, and this was made before AI was as good as it is now. But basically, this whole thing was looking to be a massive project, and a lot of people were excited for it. But for some reason, they delisted their trailer for the game, and the Steam page has just been to be announced. And instead of making the actual game they promised tons of people and hyped it up to be, they instead made NFTs. Yeah, some have defended this, saying they could just use it to support the cost of the game, but I don't know. For me, whenever I hear of NFTs or Ethereum, my mind goes to a scam immediately, and all of these are just recolored versions of already made models. I don't know, this whole thing just seems like a massive scam, and it really stinks because the whole concept they had for a game was pretty interesting. I was personally really excited for this game, and then there was no news on it, NFTs were thrown into the mix, it all went under. Green M&M email. Reddit user Direct Dogman sent an email to Scott Cawthon, saying that they were looking forward to Help Wanted's release. In the email was an edit of a green M&M in FNAF World, saying that it was their fan art. And Scott Cawthon actually responded with a free copy of Help Wanted. Just an insane interaction with Scott Cawthon. New Jersey Freddy Balloon Facebook post. New Jersey and the whole northeast of the US have had a few drone panics in late 2024. And throughout a bit of this year. It was a big deal, like every new one appearing in the news as if something bad was gonna happen, causing groups of people to form who kept tabs on everything in the sky, worried it was gonna be another Chinese spy balloon situation or some other threat. Well, there was a really silly one in New Jersey, something in the air that people couldn't identify. People were scared for 2 hours, not knowing what this was, claiming it was an alien spacecraft or possibly someone hanging in the air, but it was a Freddy balloon that got detached from the ground. Yeah, people were terrified something awful was gonna happen, and it was just this really stupid looking Freddy balloon in the air. Phantom Foxy instantly spawning on night 5. There's a really low chance that at the start of night 5 of FNAF 3, Phantom Foxy can immediately spawn and jump scare you, just completely disorienting your run right off the bat.
Another bad run to go. What? No! I got that on camera.
Smashing Windshield's Green Day motif. The music from the Midnight Motorist minigame sounds eerily similar to a Green Day song. I'll play the two right now so you can hear for yourself. Yeah, the Midnight Motorist music shares the exact same motif with this Green Day song, which is really interesting given the context of the Green Day song it shares a motif with, Hitchin' a Ride. This whole song is about struggles with alcoholism, implying that the reason you're driving crazy in Midnight Motorist is because you're driving under the influence. Given the rest of the minigame, this is just made super clear, with juniors kicking you out like you're just a drunk. Also, the comments on that Green Day song are now just filled with FNAF fans. Broken robots are haunting Scott. There's a quote from Scott Cawthon where he talks about possibly being haunted by broken robots. Looking back at many of my old games, I found that there's almost always a broken down robot in them. I'm not sure why this seems to be such a reoccurring theme in my games, but it's obvious that it's something haunting me. Looking through his older games, it is kind of crazy how every single one does have some type of broken robot. While they may be broken down, they always do look really nice though. Especially with the Desolate Hope, that art style is just gorgeous. The Tearing. On February 6, 2013, Scott Cawthon released a horror book called The Tearing, with it being his first ever known horror project before this franchise in 2014. According to a Reddit comment by Scott, he used to write stories and post them under pseudonyms, fake names, with The Tearing using Michael Parsons as one of them. But this The Tearing book is lost. It was released online exclusively and is now unlisted from all places you used to be able to get it. But we do have the cover and synopsis though. The synopsis reading, "Timothy has been quietly waiting at the orphanage for several months now, a place where children are kept while their mothers decide their fate. One by one, Timothy's friends meet grisly ends at the hands of Mr. Lantern, the resident doctor, but Timothy remains hopeful that he will be reunited with the one he loves most, his mother. However, there are dark forces at work, forces that not only want to ensure a gruesome death for Timothy, but to undermine the very notion that he existed in the first place." So this book sounds like it would have been at least somewhat similar to FNAF. I mean, terrorizing little kids in horror. For some reason, Scott Cawthon just keeps doing that. But anyways, the main place to get it was generalebooks.com, and now that site is shut down. And there were no archives of it made either. We do possibly have a bit of the book. As of 9 months ago, a Reddit user seemingly found a portion of it on a site called Booksy, but it's still in the air if this is the actual book or not. While it shares similar names from the synopsis, it could be fake. But best case, if it is real, it's still only a segment of this whole book. It gets cut off at the end. So we still don't have the full story, and I'm not sure we ever will. And before I do the outro, I had you guys vote for your favorite FNAF game in the community tab of this channel, doing bracket style voting for every game in the franchise. And the winner was FNAF 2, followed up by Pizzeria Sim, FNAF World, and Secret of the Mimic. If you guys want to participate in other votes where I talk about the winner at the end of the video, look at my community tab. I'll usually talk about whatever video I'm working on next, and you guys can vote. And that's it for the Five Nights at Freddy's Iceberg. This was a long one, sorry for the wait, but given the script is 150 pages long, I feel like it might have been justified. Also, finals were a pain. I also cut a 23-minute lore explanation because, you know, fans of this franchise are a bit scary if you mess up a tiny detail with lore, but I may polish that up and turn it into a separate video some other time. But I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I got to see the second movie for the fan event thing, and in my opinion, it was a lot better than the first. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you have a great rest of your day, week, month, year, and before I depart for the rest of 2025, happy St. Nicholas Day, Bodhi Day, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, and have an amazing New Year's. Love you guys. Looking forward to 2026.